Yes, good morning. Welcome back to Football Heritage TV. Wherever you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is, of course, the day after I want to say the game before, but I'm going to say the shambles before. I'm joined this morning by Chris Beresford, season ticket holder, one of my good friends who's clearly out there on holiday enjoying himself, or maybe he wasn't last night. Chris, how you doing? You well?
Yeah, good brother. A return to where your family originate from, so on the island of Cyprus.
There we go. Listen, I wish I was in Cyprus right now. Look how pale I am. It's Spurs doing this to me. Chris, look, you've joined me today. We're going to talk about Tottenham Hotspur. And listen, I've titled this video "Dysfunctional Spurs: Paper Over Massive Cracks." I think that this is a polite version of saying Spurs are dreadful at the moment. It's a very polite version, but I wanted to save myself from dogs abuse. Chris, I'm seeing across the Spurs platforms, Spurs WhatsApp groups, words that are being used are dour, dull. Spurs are a social experiment. Ange is emotionless. Turgid football. Who are the fans that are kidding themselves? It's not good. We're chaotic as a football club again. The football is absolutely dreadful. What did you make of last night, and what do you make of Ange's football in general?
So there's a lack of cohesiveness throughout the football club at the moment. Last night we got the result, we got over the line, very scrappy in doing so, but everything that's disjointed,
Yeah,
everything looks uninspiring. You look at the players and you think, do these guys actually understand how he wants them to play or what tactics he's trying to employ?
yeah.
And then you deep dive in respect to the personnel. And for 75 minutes, we were subjected to one of the worst showings from a professional footballer I've ever seen. That footballer, Timo Werner's on 170 grand a week. So why not give Mikey Moore an opportunity to express himself? Or then you go to Ben Davis. We know what Ben Davis is about. We know what he offers. Again, Ange says squad players need time. But if we believe the rhetoric that we're building for the future with the youth, Ben Davis isn't the youth. And again, Fraser Forster came in and took over from Vicario. Some may say that's long overdue. But again, you know what you get with Forster. If you want to be bold, why not throw a Luca Gunter or one of the kids in?
Yeah.
But the play is turgid. It's slow. There's no cohesiveness in that team. You've got players like we spent £40 million on Archie Gray, and we're told that Bayern Munich and other leading European clubs were also in the mix for him as a defensive central midfielder. Where did he start the game last night? Right back. So again, what are we doing in respect to that? And again, you look at the players; they've been asked to play out of formation. They're not in their usual positions.
Yeah.
So there's no consistency.
Yeah.
And even looking at Ange last night on the touchline, there's a lack of animation. And the manager is the inspiring, leading bright light that drives the players on and should be getting his message across from the touchlines. This is what I want to see on the pitch. But it just seems all so flat. And I ask the question: is it the beginning of the end for him, where players are now questioning his tactics and his approach to the game, and are they actually delivering what he's asking them to?
Well, this is what I was going to say to you. It's got that feel at the moment at Tottenham of, sometimes a manager comes in, and I don't want to say new manager. He's been there 14, 15, 16 months now. So we can't actually say that he's a new manager. But sometimes when a manager's there, there's that feel-good factor around a football club. You can see the manager's animated. The players look like they want to play for a manager. I'm going to ask you this, Chris. From my opinion, what I'm watching, I'm looking at a manager that this looks like it's almost the end. This has got all the vibes of when Poch was heading out, when Jose was heading out, when Conte was heading out. He seems flat, disinterested. His press conferences are rude. If we're going to be honest, they're rude, they're abrupt. He's abrasive, he's defensive, he's emotionless on the line. And that's being mirrored from the players. The players look emotionless. They look void of ideas. They look void of energy. Is this the beginning of the end for Ange, or are we being reactive Spurs fans, as some will say?
There's two sides to Ange, and if you watched his commentary and analysis during the summer at the European Championships, he came across as relaxed. He came across as quite vibrant, quite outgoing, and he looked like a man who was enjoying football. And
Yeah,
then 6 weeks later, he returns to Tottenham, and it's like there's a force field that sucks any enjoyment, any energy, and any pleasure out of you, and you realise I'm back at Tottenham. And
yeah,
he
yeah,
seems reverted to type where there's no direct eye contact. I don't know if the cough's returned, but that's neither here nor there. But he generally seems spiky when people are asking him questions.
yeah,
He's losing it with people. He's seems to be getting offended when people have said your second season you usually win something. No, I always win something in the second season.
yeah,
So
yeah.
get a bit niggly with the press, and the last thing he wants to do is alienate the press because outside of those that positively report on behalf of the club and always try and spin a positive out of even the worst case scenario,
Yeah,
once they got on, you've had it. But
yeah.
Levy was in the stands last night, and you tell me that he can pick up on the nervous energy of the fans, and the fans' response. Because anybody who sat there, we were outbettered in every department for a long percentage of the game by a team that are 14th in the championship.
Well, look, let's get into that then. And look, we'll talk about Coventry, then we'll talk about a few things after Coventry. Look, there's a lot of noise in this club as always, and look, you're in the only WhatsApp Spurs group that I have. So lucky you, you're in a WhatsApp group with me. And
Privileged.
look, yeah, absolutely. We've seen over the last sort of 5-6 months, many people, even in our WhatsApp group, which is quite harsh. I think it's we've been there, we've all been there, seen it, done it many times. No one really wants to fluff things up and pretend that things are better than they are. Over the last 5-6 months, we've seen even the hardest of fans to convince that, yeah, Ange is struggling. The results are struggling. And off the back of the North London derby, you're thinking to yourself, right, go into this Coventry game, put on a show. You know what I mean? Put on a show that all the players are playing for the manager, show that the last few defeats are purely one-offs, that's not the norm. We turn up and we've got it's a mixed bag of a team, but not so bad that it shouldn't be beating Coventry. You had Adogi, who was our first choice left back. Radu Dragushin, a player that we all celebrated beating Bayern Munich to his signature. Papa Sarr and Bentancur, our first team central midfielders. Archie Gray and Bergvall we're told by the fan base that these kids are generational, that these kids are amazing. This is why we spent our summer budget on these players. You've got Brennan Johnson, who came on for 70 minutes, who is a £50 million signing. Odeberg, who fans were saying, oh my God, this guy's great. He plays the Ange way. Look how good he was at PSG, blah, 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 blah. Timo Werner's on 175 grand a week. Dominic Solanke is our highest ever transfer fee. And they go out there, Chris, and they put that showing in. What are we putting this down to? Is it the change of team? Is it the tactics? Has he lost them? What's gone on? What went on last night?
I think I question whether all of them buy into his beliefs from a footballing perspective.
Yeah.
I think he has openly said that he's not on the training pitch Monday to Friday and that he delegates stuff to Chris Davis and others. That doesn't sit right with me. If it all finishes and ends with you as the coach, you need to be there seeing what your people are doing, seeing how they're progressing and adapting to your tactical plans, ensuring that their fitness is up to speed, and also drilling them hard in set piece routines and things. So he seems to stand away from the coaching element of things. But my understanding, and from what I've heard from those close to the club, is that he's not very personal. So he doesn't form relationships with players. He's very transactional, very traditional. He is the coach, and there's not much interaction. One of the biggest and most positive things about Pochettino was his engagement with the players. I'd drop him text messages when he was the coach outside of football at the weekends. He had that human ability to get the best out of his people by caring and being interested in them as individuals. I don't think that's what Ange is doing. So there's many contributing factors which you think, I need to cut our losses with this guy. Doing the same thing repeatedly is crazy, but we're so flat on the pitch. And when players dropped out of the first 11 and players were given the opportunity, That's where you try and embrace that moment and try and
Yeah,
set a mark out so that that person you've replaced thinks, actually, I'm not guaranteed football on Saturday. But with
yeah,
Spurs, it's so samey that you know Vicario's going to start every game as goalkeeper. Where's the
yeah,
competition to push him when he's had some bad games? You know, generally speaking, as sorry as I feel for him, Dragoson's going to be a spectator. He's going to be getting splinters in his bum sitting on the bench. We're always
yeah.
going to be Van der Ven and Romero. So there's too many comfortable players, but our squad is so shallow and so weak and lacks depth that they just play repeatedly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if your son, if you're Madison, you're sitting on that bench, you're Romero and Van der Ven, and you're away. I don't know if they travelled or and were in the stands or what, but if you're these players watching on, not one part of them is going, "Oh, I'm in trouble here." Instead, it was Sonny, Kulu, Madison, quickly come here, get changed. We need you to go on and change the game. And again, we've had a lot of blame for Madison, for example. Madison's taken a lot of flack. Bergval's got to start above Madison. Listen, I'm not saying Bergval can't be quality in the future, but Chris, I think we saw last night these youngsters that we keep pretending are great and we're building for the future and it's a 5-year project. These players aren't ready. Odeberg, I mean, 3 games Odeberg for me as 3 or 4 games now has done nothing that makes me go, oh yeah, there's a player there. Bergval, great. All of these players for me look like kids. They look like kids that should be out on loan.
You've got to support the growth of players, and you can't have young players alongside young players. As where do they learn from each other? Had
Sure.
you if you had a Victor Wanyama or a Musa Dembele in midfield,
God,
or God forbid, even a Sissoko, you put one of them young kids in along one of those seasoned professionals' experience, they're going to be learning from them on the training pitch in the dressing room. They're going to have a minder on that during the 90 minutes to get them through and coach them through that game. But when
yeah,
they're
yeah,
looking around, they've got, and let's not forget, when you sign players from Nottingham Forest, uh, Burnley relegated, Leeds relegated, and a club in Sweden I've never heard of,
mm,
you're not setting a high bar, are you? If you when you sign these youngsters, if you went out and signed a young winger, for instance, Bear, but you had Gav Bell still at the club, or you had a Aaron Lennon, or you had a David Ginola, and you
yeah,
threw them in, and they knew they would go get occasional game time. But what they'd have is the benefit of watching these outstanding pros on the training pitch Monday to Friday. They
yeah,
lift their game because they've got a mentor, a
yeah.
chaperone to guide them through the coming season. But we've got such a paper thin squad, so weak that we're asking boys to do a man's job without men being there to guide them.
I mean, look, let's we'll come back to the Coventry game in a minute, but I really want to pick up on that point you just said, Chris. You know, a paper thin squad was your words, right? We've got a paper thin squad, lack of depth. But I feel like there's a real fake positivity flying around huge sections of this fan base right now. We celebrated Deadwood leaving. And I say Deadwood because these are the same players that 2 years ago, Chris, when some of us were calling them Deadwood, we were told, be a better fan, get behind the players, they will come good. Their cycle has finished, they've gone. And we've replaced this Deadwood with loads of kids that now other fans, so those same fans are now starting to say, but they're young, give them time. What we've not done is we've not replaced any of these senior pros. So the actual age and experience level of this squad has now gone from there to there. And we're putting all this hope in youth that are getting 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there. But this all stems, Chris, from the transfer window. Again, it's been a diabolical transfer window where we saw last night. If you look on the pitch last night, if I'm not wrong, every single one of our new players played last night, other than Yang, who is obviously still in South Korea. So you had Archie Gray and Bergvall who started along with Odeberg. And then off the bench, and I'm missing one. Oh, sorry, and Solanke
Solanke played as well. Yeah,
Solanke up top. And I'm looking at all 4 of those players right now, and I'm saying to myself, all right, it's early on in the season, but I'll ask you this, Chris, to finally get to a question here. From those 4 signings that have come in this summer immediately, are you looking at any of these, and Werner played, are you looking at any of these and saying, that was really good business, I see what Tottenham are doing here?
No, no. I say fair play if you want to sign the youth, but again, that youth has got to go alongside players that can instantly come in and lift the team and can
Yep.
contribute to the first 11 from the off, and that's completely against the approach we've taken. But you, there's just so many things that don't make sense, are there? That
Man,
we've
it's
got.
mad.
You think Odebear's potentially picked up an injury, which they think he could be out for 2 or 3 months. Look what that leaves you in terms of wingers. Timo Werner, absolutely rubbish. And then you've got Son, who, look, the voodoo dolls are going to come out and people are going to be throwing darts at pictures of me, but he's finished. He's been finished 2 or 3 years.
I think he's finished as a left winger. We need to find a way to get him
Yeah.
through on goal. That's what I think we need.
So he's not effective in that left wing position.
Agreed.
Then
Agreed.
on the right wing, you've got Kulusevski. He's a one-trick pony. If you were facing him as a fullback, you'd know how
Yep.
to defend him successfully. And then
Yep.
you've got Brennan Johnson. Brennan's coming for a lot of pelters. I've been critical of myself. Doesn't mean I
Yep.
don't want to see him do well. Of course I do. Anybody
Yep.
who sees wears the Spurs shirt, I want to be a success. But when you're spending 65 million on a forward, as we have done with Solanke, the key is the supply chain. And the
Yep.
supply chain from us is we've got wingers that can't even cross the ball.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Do you
that's
know what?
and
Spot on. When you said about Brennan Johnson, first of all, I will say fair play. Congratulations to him for the goal. I think it was a really cool, calm
yep.
finish. Thought the lad done well. My issue with Brennan Johnson has never been that I don't think he's going to grab a few goals a season. My issue with him is for the rest of the 90 minutes of the game, he doesn't do anything. Like, he can't beat a man. His crossing is terrible. His control is terrible. But this is where I want to move it to Ange Postecoglou. Okay, because
and it's the coaching or lack of it.
Absolutely. I don't think, Chris, look, I did a show on this yesterday where I said, do I think Tottenham Hotspur should be winning the league title? No, I don't. I don't think you could bring in Pep. We're not winning the league with this squad. Do I think, though, that this club, with these players, we should be looking at that top four and saying we are the favourites for fourth behind the other three? I do. I do think we've got enough quality in that team that we should be one of the ones everyone's going for. Tottenham are definitely going to be fourth or fifth. But we're not. And I look at this at coaching. I look at all these fake positive fans that are saying, oh, the football's good. The pressing's good. I can see what we're doing. Mate, this is some of the most turgid, I love that word, by the way, the most turgid, uninspiring, dull, dour, boring, feel free to chuck in words. This is the worst football I think I've seen. This football is absolutely, and as Jamie Redknapp said last night, you probably didn't see it being on Sky Sports, he said it was bloody diabolical. 5-yard passes, defender to defender to keeper to defender to midfielder. It is awful. It is awful.
You think about the brand we played under Nuno Espirito Santo. No. And had he played as we are now, he'd have been frog marched out of Tottenham Stadium because the fans were on his back from the outset. And this guy, Ange, his football's no better. If not, at least under Nuno, you knew what the plan was, and it was to defend until the cows came home and then try and snatch one on the break. And defensively, we were very strong. It was just very uninspiring. It was very hard to watch and very laboured. But from defence to forward, we're conceding goals in every game. Midfield teams play for us. We've got no creativity, and we're not even. When was the last time you saw us score a goal from outside the box? When was the last time you saw somebody hit the beans on toast with a 30-yard pole driver, or somebody work the keeper from distance? It's all backwards and sideways, 5-yard passes.
So boring. Last night, Chris, as I said, at one point I had 1,200 people in a watch along. And every single person in the chat is just saying, God, this is boring. People were talking about turning off and watching the Champions League games. People are bored. And we've got this selection though of fans. I just don't get it, Chris. And I say to you lot in the WhatsApp group all the time, am I dumb? Am I missing something that others are seeing when they're saying it's exciting? They say things like, you didn't want Conte because he's negative, but now you've got an attacking manager. Is this an attacking manager? Is it in
No,
your mind, Chris? Is this what you think an attacking manager looks like?
for the first 10 games of last season he was, and then the 11th game the wheels came off, people worked us out, and since then we've just floundered.
Mm. No, absolutely. I mean, look, for me, listen, I said last night on my stream, I'd love somebody to give me the stats of how many passes this season between Van der Ven and Romero they've had at the back. And last night was no different. This time with just Dragoshin and Davis, just across the back, bringing Fraser Forster out to Gray, across the back. And fans, I think we're mistaking, Chris, possession for controlling, dominating, and attacking football. I think we think that having the ball equals good football. Would that be fair to say?
You've got to do something. Well, there's a difference between having the ball and not doing anything with it, yet having the ball for 20% of the time and making 4 goal assists or goal efforts.
Right.
And the reason we retain a high percentage is because it's all backwards and sideways. There's no piercing forward runs. There's nobody running early. So when I was at the Arsenal game on Sunday, the amount of times you could see Brennan Johnson, there was the channel to run into. He needed to start the run early, and then wait for the ball to come over the top. He wasn't. He was almost holding his position on the halfway line. I guess that's what Ange has asked him to do. And then when the ball came to him, the fullback and the centre back were doubling up on him. Well, you've lost the opportunity. You need to be making that run in the hope that the diagonal or the long balls come over the top. And it's the reason we have that high percentage is because we hang on to the ball, but we achieve nothing with it.
I mean, do you know what, Chris? I've never seen a team like this. And what I mean by that, that's not a good thing, by the way. I've never seen a team that get the ball into the opposition third, whether it's an attacking midfielder, a striker, wingers, and their first thought every time is, let me cut back and play it back 5 yards. It is slow. It is monotonous. And do you know what? Do you know the funny thing with all of this, Chris, is this guy seems to be getting a pass because of previous managers. And what I mean by that is, we can't sack Ange because we've sacked loads of managers. This manager, his football is as bad as some of the others, if not worse. His stats are worse than all the other managers since One Day Ramos. Chris, One Day Ramos was 16, 17 years ago, right? He's worse than all of them statistically. So where is this belief from the fan base, Chris? Not all of it, but where is the belief of it will click? Things are getting better. You can see we're improving. What am I missing that they are not?
I do not know. I have friends who speak that way. Oh, we can't sack him. We've got to give him an opportunity. We've sacked too many managers. If you flew on an airline where the captain regularly overshot the runway, would you continue to get on that plane in the future? No. And through what evidence is there as to why we should give this guy a go? And the danger is the longer the malaise sits in, the closer you get taken to a relegation battle, and the rot really starts. And when the rot sets in, it can be even harder to overcome that. And we're taking backward steps. Players don't want to join you. There becomes regular booing. The players lose confidence. The effect can be massive.
But Chris, let me ask you: is the more worrying thing? Listen, we're just football fans. Whatever happens, whatever reaction we get to this video, whatever me and you talk about, or our Spurs WhatsApp group, we're just football fans talking. Is the more worrying thing, right? Is the more worrying thing that Ange himself looks completely disinterested, looks completely void of all enthusiasm, whether that be on the sideline, whether that be press conferences, post-match interviews. He has got that aura of a man that does not want to be here already. Is that the more worrying thing rather than what we as a fan base think?
I think he's a very arrogant man, very stubborn man. He clearly is reluctant to change. And yeah, all those points you made are very well evidenced. If he doesn't want the job, he doesn't want to be there, he needs to walk away. The longer it continues, and equally he's getting very prickly and very spiky with the press. Well,
yeah, very, very.
Based on further poor performances, and based on the comments that your Carragher's and your Neville's and your other season pros put out there, the chinks in the armour go mount, and the rhetoric against him is going to increase. And if that happens, it's got to be tough-skinned. As if you just alienates and pisses everybody off, then the media will put him in the target line.
But I mean, Chris, look, you've known me for years now. You know me; I'm not shy. I've been Ange out for, I mean, since the end of last season. I was in our WhatsApp group, right, saying I don't want this manager. I can see where this is heading. Whilst other people say they're more positive, and I'm sorry, when they say they're more optimistic and I'm pessimistic, I could see where this was going. At the middle of last season, you could see that this man was stubborn. He didn't want to change. And then I said to myself, right, I don't want this manager. I'm not going to be that vocal about it. Let's see what the transfer window brings. From the first signing in Timo Werner, I turn around and what did I say? Nah, done. Done. I don't want this manager here. If he is sanctioning this signing, I don't want him. The argument will always be, no, Levy wants him. I don't care. This manager should either turn around and go, I don't want Werner. If you want him, I'm walking, right? But my whole point to this is, Chris, is now what I'm starting to see is, before maybe it was a handful of us that didn't want Ange Postecoglou. That is now growing. The noises game by game are growing that people don't want him. More importantly, the noises are growing from Sky, TalkSport, BT Sport, Glenn Hoddle's weighing in. All of these people now are starting to go, hang on, this manager's tactics, this manager's press conferences, this for me feels like we've seen this film before, Chris. It's like me and you have been to the cinema. We've seen the Titanic a million. Not, by the way, people, Chris and I don't go to the cinema to watch the Titanic together. We should, though, Chris. But we've seen it before. We know that Jack doesn't get on that door. We know that he drowns. And yet every time it's like us sitting at the cinema going, come on, Jack, get on that. No, he's drowned. That's where I'm at with Spurs. We've seen this story so many times, and it's, Chris, it's not getting better. I can't see any positive signs.
And I'll tell you another thing we haven't touched on that has been evident as clear as day for the first 5 games of this season. We have not got a leader on the pitch. We do not have a club captain. We have a club captain in name, in Son, but we haven't got somebody who's going to demonstrate some shithousery when we need, when the tackles start flying in and it gets a bit rough and physical. Look at what Arsenal did to us on Sunday. When the scenario took place where the keeper got booked, they doubled up on us. Their players were there pushing our players, and we were going backwards. We had nobody who led that team. No, we haven't got a man in there. And we talk about clearing the dead wood. Maybe this may be a controversial opinion. I'd have kept Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, because at least when it got physical, he could put his boot in. He was 110%, although not the greatest of players. But you look in the rest of the squad, where is your leader? Where is your standout leader? And you can't trust Romero as a liability, but we've just got very pleasant, very nice young boys. We haven't got anybody in the Roy Keane mould, in the Matic mould, in the Henderson mould. Men that are going to go in and stand up for their buddies, look after their boys when it's getting physical.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? When I watched Aston Villa the other day, and I looked at their midfield, they were in a bit of a scrap at one point, and they had Onana, who's a
little feisty John McGinn in there, Onana, a big 6'4" enforcer.
Exactly. It was men, Konsa, big strapping lad. It just felt like, this is a team that Emery's put together of men, not expensive footballers, men, right? And then I look at Spurs, we filled it with Werner is timid, Brennan Johnson's timid, Odegaard's timid, Solanke for me. I mean, it's only been 4 games, whatever it is for Solanke. But again, I want, 6 foot, I'm going to guess, 6'3", 6'4"?
Yeah.
He should be, I want him, throw your weight about, get in there, it just feels like it's all very, very nice all over the pitch. And you know what? The worrying thing for me is this, Chris. Chris, I always say this to you guys in the chat. Whenever I put out a video, I always say, guys, look at a selection of the comments that I receive, right? Because I know what I'm going to get. I know that comments we'll get is, but we won. But it was a B team, blah, blah. Coventry City made, I think it was 7 to 8 changes to their first team, right? They had players like like a Sakamoto and Sims on the bench, right? This is a Coventry team, Chris, that have won one of five championship games.
14th
They
in
only
the
managed
league. Yeah.
5 goals all season, right? And this is a team, and I think you saw what Perchy sent to our group earlier. That of the 5, 6, 7 games they've had this year because of cup games, I think all but one of the teams that they've played against have had more shots against Coventry than Tottenham did. With £60 million Solanke, £50 million Brennan Johnson, Bentancur, Sarr, Son came on, Madison, Kulusevski, and we're having less shots than the likes of Watford, Oxford City against Coventry. There's no excuse for what happened yesterday, Chris. Is there is no excuse for personnel, blaming personnel.
No. And as I said earlier, it starts and finishes with the coach. He's the one who has to take overall responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, what some of the other things that I've got written down that I wanted to talk about. We talked about Ange looking fed up already. We've talked about replacing Deadwood with what seems to be like, I don't want to say more Deadwood because they're kids, but in terms of being a club that want to progress, we've not capitalised. Like you made a comment there about Højbjerg. Now, I'm 100% behind selling Højbjerg. However, I'm 100% behind sell Højbjerg, sell Lo Celso, sell Ndombele, sell Skip, which we have. All 4 of them have gone, right?
But we didn't bring anybody into it. Yeah, but we didn't bring anybody
some pros, some senior pros. We didn't. We brought in 2 18-year-old centre mids, and our fans still go, oh, but you can see what he's doing. And the reason I bring that up, Chris, is Bentancur and Sarr. Bentancur keeps getting raved about. For years, he's been raved about. Sarr, this boy's going to be great. He's generational. I think that has got to be one of the worst midfield duos I've seen in the Premier League. I think they're dreadful.
I've just actually had a WhatsApp message from a friend. He's been a season ticket holder at Tottenham for 56 years. Okay. He's in his 70s and he's just texted me, worst performance I've ever had the misfortune to watch, complete embarrassment, manager on his way out. And that's from a bloke who's 77 years of age, has had a season ticket for 54 years at Tottenham.
You've stolen my thunder. That was my next bullet point is this the worst game you've seen from Tottenham Hotspur? That was
well, the one. I've got people texting me, telling me that's the worst game they've ever seen.
I agree. I thought it was utterly embarrassing. I'm watching, like, look at their forward line, right? Brandon Thomas Asante or Asante Thomas, 2 years ago, he was playing for Salford 2 years ago, right? I remember watching in the Salford documentary that it was going to be hit or miss whether he actually made it, right? You had up front, is it Basati who played up front?
Yeah,
he's a 19-year-old.
Yeah, that's the lad I was talking to you about with the tattoo on his neck. Did he wear number 5 or something? But really gave us all sorts of problems.
No, the number 5, that was Radoni. He was the attacking midfielder. But again, you had him. Basante up front is a 19-year-old that they signed from Cannes, right? 19-year-old. Yeah. If someone has said to you, one of these 2 strikers today cost 60 million,
yeah,
it's madness just how pathetic that performance was.
Yeah, and I think when Sims came on, he caused us some problems. Let's not forget, Coventry missed at least 2 good opportunities when he put it left of the post, and a couple of key blocks for us. But you think, other than the 2 goals, how many saves did their keeper have to make? How many times did we work him?
I can remember 2.
I think Kulusevski may have had an opportunity when he came on, and then the second shot was blocked, wasn't it? Yeah.
And the header from Ben Davies from the corner.
That's
what I can remember. But do you know what I said last night on my show, Chris? Spurs going to Coventry, who are doing really poorly this year, off the back of a North London derby defeat. Do you know who should have been man of the match last night?
Tell me.
Their goalkeeper. Their goalkeeper. We should have had 30 shots in that game. We should have been camped in their half, peppering their goal. But we looked like the championship team. We looked absolutely mind-blowingly bad. Like, mind-blowingly bad. And I then watched the highlights of Brighton and their manager, who's what, 30 or something.
Yeah, 31, 7 years younger than Milner.
And I'm watching, I'm watching the way they move the ball with this manager who's gone and bought loads of players that if our club had bought them, we'd all look down upon. And I'm looking and thinking, yeah, that's a manager who can set up a team. For me, I'm saying it now. We've got to cut our losses while we're 4 games in. We need a proper manager to come in. And look, for the last 5 to 10 minutes, I know you need to go at 22. So the last 5-10 minutes, I want to talk about this, Chris. Somebody put in a wonderful comment yesterday in the show I was in. And the comment said, can we please just get a manager that doesn't have a cult following? Right? And I thought, absolutely bang on. We had Conte, who people seem to follow him from club to club, had the Chelsea baggage, if you like, has got that emotional baggage in interviews and press conferences, and he's got that reputation of leaving and storming out. You've got Jose Mourinho, who, for as much as he's a winner, and I actually don't mind Jose, I think he's a good character for the world of football. But Jose, he is a character. He's not going to get on with Daniel Levy, right? And he has people that follow him all around the world, right? I think people call them Jose sexuals, which is a bit weird, but right. And now we've got Ange, who has this cult following of fans that never supported Spurs, that whether they were in Japan or Australia or Scotland, that now support Spurs because of Ange. That's not a problem, by the way. More the merrier. But again, when you get to that stage, these people are so invested in that manager, Chris, rather than Tottenham, that what they do is no matter how bad it gets, they just defend the manager as opposed to the club. And all I want, Chris, I want a normal manager. Give me normal. Give me middle of the road, normal. Somebody who isn't fiery in press conferences, somebody who's managing on the touchline, somebody who is good with the press, good with the players, and somebody that understands the balance between defending and attack. And I'll chuck a few names at you. I just want somebody like a Thomas Frank. I just want somebody
that was going to be the first name on my lips.
Manages.
A Thomas Frank or an O'Neill at Wolves, somebody who is low maintenance, low ego, but is a football man and knows the game.
That's all I want. I don't need, when people say, oh, but what manager will come in and win things? No manager's coming in and winning things. I just want a manager. And the word I'm going to use, Chris, and sorry for the rant, the word I'm going to use is I just want Spurs to stop the chaos. This club right now, it looks chaotic. When we attack, we look chaotic and all over the place. When we defend, we look chaotic and all over the place. Everything looks either rushed or very slow. I just want a normal, hard-working manager that comes in, puts his arm around the players, plays the players in their actual positions, and gets the best out of them. Because, and I'll pass the baton to you now, Chris. I will say this. I don't think Ange Postecoglou has got the best out of a single player at Tottenham in the last year. A single player.
Name me a player that he's developed, not one. Name me a player that he's taken backwards 5 or 6 easily.
Look, Maddison.
You spend his
son. These players are going backwards.
Yeah. Well, Maddison quite literally is going backwards. He'll be playing centre half before long. He is that deep. So you bought a player who was sat behind the centre forward, was pinging balls into the box, bringing wingers into play. He's so far back in the midfield 3 that he's almost playing centre half. Yeah. And then you think you spend 65 million on Solanke, you've got to supply him. Without a supply chain, he's fell from day one. But we talk about all this belief in our young players, yet we give them no minutes. We talk about Alfie Devine being the greatest thing since sliced bread. Where's he playing? Waterloo or somewhere in the Belgian leagues? And then you start doing a deep dive forensic review of it, and you think this Lang character, since he has left Villa, they've exploded. They've signed great players. They're in the Champions League. They're a force to be reckoned with. Talking to my friends who are season tickets holders at Villa, they said he was rubbish. Yeah. Look, if his ability to identify a player is Timo Werner on loan for a season, and some of the other dross we've signed, then he needs to be given his marching orders too.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate, absolutely. Look, do you know what? I feel like a lot of messages get misconstrued. I feel like, as somebody who is on YouTube every day and people see my face and I put my face to my opinion daily, people don't actually listen. What they say is, Chris, is, oh, what manager will come in and win? It's like, whoa, hang on. I just want a manager that does the basics. Forget winning at the moment, Chris. Forget winning trophies. We need a manager that comes in and can do the bloody basics.
We need a complete reset of the football club because we're not doing things on the basics. We're not doing the basics correctly, and we've got 7 games in the next 21 days. You can see Thomas Frank quite easily doing a number on us tactically on Saturday, and then God knows what we're going to put out back against Karabag, but I'm sure we'll make hard work of that. And the demise is setting in. The rot's starting to increase. We need to stop it, nip it in the bud, and we need to move on. Bring somebody in with fresh ideas, low maintenance, but somebody who's actually a footballing person.
Yeah, I think you're right. For me, I think when we talk about learning lessons from the past, for me, it's only 4 games gone. We're in every competition. For me, right now, I would get a new manager in that brings a bit of feel-good factor. And when I say feel-good factor, I don't mean tippy-tappy. It doesn't have to be tippy-tappy, tick-attack of football. I'm just talking about somebody that comes in. I want to see James Maddison as a playmaker. I want to see Sonny through on goal. Yeah. I want to see fullbacks at fullbacks or wingbacks at wingback. I just want to see some normality. And at the moment, as I said, Chris, the only word I can use to describe this club is chaos.
Yeah, it breaks my heart to think over the years I've had a season ticket, the excitement and enjoyment I used to get going to watch Harry Redknapp's Tottenham side. They were the magic days. And then we had the Pochettino era. It wasn't all great, but generally it was better than it was worse. And then since then, it's been a downward spiral of misery with your Jose, your Contes, your Nuno Espirito Santos, Ryan Mason 76,000 times, and then bringing in Ange. We've not identified the right person. We haven't got somebody who heralds the dares to do Tottenham DNA, and we just look laboured, disjointed, and dysfunctional on the pitch.
Chris, all I want from people is honesty. I just can't keep hearing from people that they can see what he's doing, right? That we're going to see the fruit. At the moment, I think this is possibly one of the worst. I'm going to say it. I don't care. I think he's one of the worst Tottenham managers I've ever seen, right?
No, that's what I'm publicly labelling him as the worst.
I think his stats are dreadful. The thing is, there's nothing. When he first came in, do you remember, Chris? I said, "Oh, I like this. Breath of fresh air. I like this," and I was very much cool. But the problem is, after that first 10 games, you're thinking, all right, I'm not expecting to win the league. I'm not expecting to win trophies, but cool. That first 10 games has happened. What have you got? Show me how you change things. Didn't do anything. Show me how you adapt. Didn't do anything. Show me what you do in the transfer market. Crap, and more crap, right?
Yeah.
And slowly but surely, that's made me go, nah, this manager, this guy's not the one. So I don't mind admitting I got it wrong at the beginning, but right now I'm not wrong about this. This guy is horrendous at everything.
Yeah, I completely agree with every statement you made there.
Yeah. Look, Chris, I know you've got to go. Listen, thank you so much. Look,
can I just say one thing?
Go for it.
I watched the game last night at the Paphos branch of the Spurs Supporters Association, and they're based at the Cluster Sports Bar and Grill in Cloricus Road, Paphos. If you're ever out, make a point of visiting. Great people, very hospitable, and they are the same as us with the same concerns, frustrations. The only thing is they've got a view of the Mediterranean and 30-degree heat to put up with.
They're getting a tan while they're watching the crap. Look, big up, Chris. Chris, if you'd be so kind, if you see this video later, because I know you're busy now, just put in the link to that to the Spurs Supporters Club there. Guys, girls, I'm going to leave it there. Unfortunately, people will say negative. Look, I'm not even angry now. I'm not even angry. I'm actually thinking this is what I thought would happen. This is the worst football I think I've seen for a long time. People will say it's not as bad as Jose and Conte. At least with Jose and Conte, I knew what they were trying to do. This is just shocking. I am very much Ange out. I've been very public about that. Many fans are starting to go that way now. And for me, I think he's very lucky that he had Coventry. He's got Karabag coming up. Brentford have just got a massive injury to Visser. I think what is saving this guy at the moment is the clubs we're about to play. The moment we play good teams again, he is going to get beaten. Chris, thanks for joining. Much love. Enjoy the rest of your holiday. Everybody, please like, please subscribe, and I'll be back. I might be back Saturday. I've got an operation on my mouth on, believe it or not, on Friday. So I might not be able to talk Saturday.
I'm sure not even a surgeon could shut you up.
It's not about shutting me up, mate. It's about helping me more. But listen, big up to everyone. Thanks, Chris. Take care. And you know what? I'm going to do this one. Levy out, Ange out, and come on, you Spurs.